Okay, thank you, Mitch, for that legal review and update. We are going to move to a pipeline panel discussion. In a moment, I'm going to bring up Josh Gibbon, Doug Walker, and Alan Four. They are going to each give about a 15-minute presentation about what their companies have been most recently working on, and then we'll have some time at the end for some question and answer. Let me go through their bios here real quick. Josh Gibbon is the Director of Business Development for TransCanada. Josh is responsible for origination and development of market-centered and supply-focused projects across the U.S. gas pipeline grid. During his career, Josh has served in roles across the organization, including marketing, capacity sales, optimization and logistics, project coordination, easy for me to say, project coordination and strategy. Doug Walker is Vice President of Business Development for Tallgrass Energy Partners, with a focus on the Midwest markets, primarily accessible via the Rockies Express pipeline. He has been with Tallgrass since its inception in 2012 and began working on REX at its predecessor owner-operator in 2008, and has also worked with Millennium Pipeline Project. And third in our panel is Alan Four, Vice President of Public Affairs for Kinder Morgan. Has more than 25 years of experience in law, government, and public affairs at the local, state, and national levels. At Kinder Morgan, Mr. Four manages corporate public affairs, government relations, and community relation activities for the existing company assets and major expansion projects throughout the United States. Please welcome all three of these gentlemen to the stage.
Good morning. I'm Josh Gibbon, the Director of U.S. Business Development for the gas pipeline assets of TransCanada. Here to talk to you today a little bit about TransCanada, so that's probably a new name for most of you in this room, as well as some of the products that we've been originating that support this region and support the pipeline grid. So TransCanada, a lot of you think of the Canadian assets and what we're doing up north. But after the Columbia acquisition that was closed last July, there's a significant U.S. presence, and not to mention a presence in Mexico. So when you think of TransCanada, think of a North American player in both gas and liquids. Over 90,000 miles of pipeline, huge storage presence, and then often forgotten is the power side of our business, which part of which is being sold right now, but also will be a mainstay for our corporation going forward. Our specific business unit, the U.S. pipeline business, spans coast to coast. We go from the West Coast, serving California, Oregon, Washington, all the way to the East Coast, and pretty much everything in between. With the Columbia acquisition, we expanded our footprint to the east, adding a huge storage expansion footprint as well to the tune of over 280 BCF of storage into our grid. We have access with the Columbia acquisition and our legacy TransCanada position, access to both the Western Canadian sedimentary basin as well as Appalachia right here. So that's a huge attraction to TransCanada is that footprint to the two of the most prolific production plays in North America. And then we also look to see our market access on both the West Coast, East Coast, these large, stable distribution centers, and then the new attractive growth markets like LNG and power that are plugged in there as well. So we like our footprint, we like our growth potential, both on the upstream side and the downstream side. Talking more about the production basins and why we like them so much. You see a few of the metrics here. Up in Canada, you hear a lot about the Montney. You hear a lot about the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin. That's this. We have that footprint, that touch point up there. Break-evens of the $2-ish range, about 15 or so BCF of production, growing to more than that by the middle of next decade. Appalachia, of course, you guys know that well. We're north of 20 BCF now of production in Appalachia. Growth figures, you've seen staggering projections. Most of them are around north of 30 BCF. This one, we projected about 35 BCF. So you look at the sum total of these two, you're talking about 50 BCF thereabouts of production supplying North America. And we feel like our footprint is second to none in accessing both of these basins. So as we go forward, our strategy is to connect these two prolific supply basins to the markets. So what have we been doing about this? This is our project backlog, over $6 billion of growth projects, over almost 8 BCF of total capacity built out. That spans projects that have gone into service as recently as late last year and then going into service into the next couple of years. The big ones that are going to catch your eyes are going to be the large-scale, billion-dollar-plus type expansions. But I also want to point out that in this backlog, there's a number of market expansions as well. So we have over 2 BCF of market expansions built into this, connecting to LNG terminals, both in southern Louisiana as well as the Mid-Atlantic. And then we also have power expansions strung along our grid as well. The question we often get as developers is, there's production projects, but where's this gas going to go? The answer is right here. It's LNG, it's power, and then if you look from a macro standpoint, it's Mexico, it's the Southeast. So we feel like we're responding to both the supply needs and to the market needs of the grid. Getting into the specifics of a couple of our projects, I'll cover the ones that impact this region most directly. Our big project that's leading the pack right now out of this region is actually 2 projects, both Leach Express and Rain Express. Was looked at and viewed at as a combined solution for the region. Going back to 2014, a number of us up here were responding to the producer's needs of evacuating the gas from the wellhead. Our solution was to connect the production region, which is where we're sitting right now in Ohio, across to our grid and providing outlets to our existing markets and then markets off system. We accomplished this by building a 130-mile greenfield pipeline across Ohio, as well as some other associated expansion facilities to connect those markets. These producers, some of you guys in this room, were seeking uplift from the wellhead prices to prices more closely aligned to Henry Hub by providing this access to our southern markets like LNG, like the power markets, like the Southeast markets, was very attractive for these producers. This project, once again, leading the pack in our backlog as far as this type of project. We have completed our work with FERC. We have our certificate and have recently received our notice to proceed. We're clearing trees, preparing the right-of-way to go build. So very exciting stuff, targeted for an in-service date of November of this year. Next is Mountaineer Express and Gulf Express. You'll notice on the map it looks very similar from a footprint, from a commercial footprint standpoint, to Leach Express and to Rain Express. The nuance here is that our header that we're building, instead of building across Ohio, is through West Virginia. And I don't want anybody in here to take offense to that, but what we look at is with our system, you see here is a spider web. By building out facilities in West Virginia, it also helps Ohio because our systems are connected. So all in all, good for the Appalachian region, good for the grid. We're adding over 2.6 BCF of capability within the region for this project. So you take the total of Leach Express 1.5 BCF and this 2.6 BCF, over 4 BCF of supply takeaway solutions in aggregate. This is also adding, once again, an outlet to the south through Gulf Express to go target those same southern markets of LNG and of electric and of the southeastern influence. This one, a year behind Leach Express and Rain Express by design, so we're still working through that process with FERC, targeting in November of 18 in-service date. And our last project for this region is one that we're actively working, is called Buckeye Express. We held an open season that closed several weeks ago, received the bids in from the shippers, and we're currently working with those shippers and our engineers, facility folks, on optimizing that design, getting those things fine-tuned to move forward with this. Another strategic project for the region, up to 700 a day of total capability. A couple of years behind these guys, so 2020, which we think is more suited towards the production curve and when the incremental need will arise for the region. But we think this is very strategic by leveraging and utilizing our existing footprint, the pipe that we have in the ground, and providing that next solution for the region. So all in all, those three projects for the Clarington, West Virginia Panhandle, southwestern PA region, it's about 5 BCF of takeaway. And we think that that's integral to the growth numbers that you saw earlier in the presentation, and positioning this basin to connect to the rest of the U.S. And then in closing, the same question that I asked and mentioned a few minutes ago is, you have these production solutions. Where does the gas go? Where does it get consumed? This is the other stuff that we're doing right now. They don't have the big splashy scale of the BCF plus, the 2 BCF plus kind of numbers, but there's over half a BCF of markets that we're adding onto our grid right now. And these aren't, for us, these aren't just phone calls that we take. These are, several of these are executed, have executed PAs. Others are in the term sheet phase. But we have real markets that we're adding to our grid right now. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Josh. Next up will be Doug Walker.
Waiting on a presentation. Am I on here? Yeah, I'm Doug Walker from Tallgrass Energy. Primarily going to talk about Rockies Express today. That's our main asset in this part of the country. And thank you for having me here. You're going to hear a pretty common theme in my presentation to what Josh just talked about. Just a quick look at Tallgrass, because we are a relatively new company, give you an idea of who we are. We are 75% owner of Rockies Express. 25% owner is P66, their partner. That's the long kind of dark blue line on this map. We also have 2 other interstate pipelines that come out of the Rocky Mountains. Tallgrass Interstate, we call it Tight, and Trailblazer Pipeline, which is hard to see on the map, but it's the green line that kind of overlays Rex until eastern Nebraska there. We also have an oil pipeline, Pony Express, which was, that pipeline's been converted twice. It started as a oil pipeline back in the day, and then in the 90s was converted to gas, and in the last couple of years we've converted it back to oil, and then built a line all the way down to Cushing to tie into the trading hub there. The takeaway here is we've been busy since Tallgrass was formed. So we started in 2012, basically through an acquisition of assets that were required to be spun off from Kinder Morgan. as a result of the El Paso acquisition. And that's where Tallgrass got its start. The good news for people like me who worked with Kinder Morgan or at Kinder Morgan at the time was Tallgrass was about 6 people. So they needed pipeline people to run the business, and so they kept a good portion of us. So you'll see a legacy from the Kinder Morgan days still in existence, but certainly we brought some new folks on as well. So that started in 2012. We're a MLP structure at Tallgrass, so we've got a public MLP which went public in 2013, and then we took our general partner public a year after that. We still have a private company that is the incubator to continue drop downs to the MLP. Not all of Rex has dropped down yet, for example. But we've had a pretty good run at Rex, so we'll get into the specifics there. Here's a little closer picture of Rex itself. Starts out in the Rocky Mountain region. And when it was originally built, the concept was to take gas as far east as quick as you could. And we terminate in Clarington, Ohio. Before we were even done building the line, it became clear that there was going to be some new opportunities out here in the Appalachian region to do other things with our pipe, and we've done that. So the pipe is 1.8 BCF a day. It's a 42-inch line, high-pressure pipeline on the main line from west to east. And I'll explain a little bit more about east to west. But you see in the graphic here, our current capacity now going from east to west is 2.6 BCF a day. Just some of the highlights, kind of like you heard with TransCanada, we've got another basin that's in play with the Rocky Mountains. We're bullish on that basin long term. We're certainly bullish on the Appalachian Basin and excited about our position here. Rex was built with 10-year contracts initially, and we went into service in 2009. The life cycle on this pipe has been pretty short, I guess, if you think about all the changes we've gone through. But we've got bidirectional flow now in what we call our Zone 3, which is basically Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. And we've done expansions to interstate pipelines and expansion to end-use markets. We'll get a little more detail there. You know, when I hear some of the well names, I think we ought to do a better job of naming our projects. This was the capacity enhancement project, very creative. It's not Warrior or Purple Haze. You know, we've had some fun with the Rex name, but capacity enhancement. But, you know, we have to deal with FERC, so you don't want to get too exciting, I guess. Anyway, this is our last expansion. This was a full compression expansion. We put in some new stations and revised some existing stations to add 800 million a day away from this area. Those are all 15-year contract terms, and depending where you deliver to, if it goes to Lebanon, it was 45 cents a unit, and if it goes to points west of there, it's 55 cents a unit. That was fully sold out at the 800 a day. We have started to get into the LDC market for long-term contracting. You see them listed here. Vectren North, Laclede Gas, and Citizens Gas all took positions on this project. We went into full service in early January. We did it in stages, but the last stage was in January. When we put our new capacity on the market, it filled up. It took 1 day to go through the confirmation process to fill the pipe up. Now, that wasn't necessarily new production. It was taking production away from the some other pipes, and obviously we're hoping there'll be a backfill to continue more production growth in the area. So here's a look at a couple things here on the project. You can see the blue boxes are the new compressor stations. Internally, we were calling this the Power Up project, which is really what it is. Putting compression in a lot of ways is easier on the environmental side because it doesn't take as much of an impact. We've already got right of way in the area. We do buy land when we're doing above ground facilities, so there was some land impact, but it's pretty minuscule compared to laying new pipe. What you also see on this is the receipt points on the east end of the line. The bulk of our receipts are right at Clarington, and I've got a list here in a minute we'll go through. But we also have a Seneca lateral we built down to the Mark West Seneca plant. That's just west of Clarington. So here's our buildup. We started as a 1.8 BCF a day pipe, west to east. We did our first contracts. This was like right on the beginning of tallgrass coming into play. We did two tiers of contracts on Seneca, and those were both done with Antero to total 600 a day. And then we did our first bidirectional work on the pipe for an additional 1.2, which made Zone 3 fully bidirectional 1.8. Those contracts, by the way, were 20-year contracts for 50 cents. And then we did the capacity enhancement project that I just explained. And what we found now that we've settled out, at least for a month, now 2 months, I guess, we anticipated this and we've kind of proved it. There's room for additional growth on the pipe. We've identified 150 million a day. We just finished an open season on that. We're evaluating the bids right now. If anybody has interest, let me know. It's still open for negotiation. But basically we were giving guidance that we were looking for a combination of short-term and long-term contracts, rates in the kind of same range of what we were seeing for what we sold to our long-term customers. So should be some more news on that later, but that was it was just completed a week ago today, and like I said, we're evaluating results now. Here's a list of our existing points and one future point. I talked about Seneca. We've also got connections with East Ohio, Eureka, Hunter, Rice, Ohio River System, and EQT, and Dominion, sorry. Actually, EQT says future. I don't know why it says that. It's in service. We've got over 4 BCF a day connected. We expect a connection to be done with Rover when they come through, and that's at their request. So there's some pretty good liquidity. You can bring, we can't move 4 BCF away, but that creates some flexibility. Every one of these points has producers who are, as many as can be split connected. So they can come to us, they can come to Dominion, they can come to Texas Eastern. You see a lot of competition that way and flexibility based on what the best markets are for them. And then the other thing we've been doing is trying to get more connected directly to the markets. We've been working on the supply side of REX, particularly on the east end for the last few years, and started to think about where is this gas going to go. We have major interstate deliveries, which were expanded as part of the East to West project to allow our existing shippers to continue their business and the new shippers to find outlets through people like A&R and NGPL, Midwestern. Those are all major points for us, and they're flowing very healthy these days. But we like to be directly connected to the market. When we first built REX, we were 800 million a day connected to LDC or industrial markets. Now we've added a BCF a day, or we're adding, I should say. Some of these are in service, or in process of being completed. So when we're all done with that, we'll see an additional capability of a BCF a day to direct connected markets. And for those of you into the pipeline scheduling business, this is just a point map that shows who we're connected to. I mentioned a couple of the pipes. The biggest ones, A&R is a capacity, I think, is 1.2. It's not that unusual to see flows over a BCF a day, and it's one of Josh's pipes. And some of that gas goes south, some of it goes north. NGPL, same thing. That one's about a 1.4 currently. It can go higher than that. Flows there are, again, can approach a BCF a day. So these are major interconnects. Natural's done some system work on their side to take gas north and south from there. So we're seeing the gas go every which way. And we pitch REX as the northernmost header system. We're a little unique on the pipeline side, at least in the States. We're an east-west pipeline, not a north-south, but we're delivering into a lot of the north-south pipes to take advantage of the growing markets in the Gulf. And that's kind of the picture of that. Where do we go in the future? But we're certainly excited about the Appalachian region, and we do have more interconnects coming with power plants and hopefully LDCs. We continue to work on that for a place to put all the gas that's coming out of here. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Doug. And our third presenter will be Alan Four from Kinder Morgan.
There we go. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. One of the things this panel represents, too, is the dynamic nature of the industry. TransCanada and Columbia, and Doug and I actually worked together on Rockies Express when he was president of Rockies Express Pipeline at Kinder Morgan. And part of the divestiture we had to do when we bought El Paso Energy was divesting Rockies Express, which spawned Tallgrass Energy. So very dynamic industry, but I think shows that there's great potential and opportunity out there across the country for the pipeline industry. I'm going to take a little different take on pipelines today. My job at Kinder Morgan, I lead our corporate public affairs efforts across the United States. And I want to talk a little bit about the challenges the industry is facing from a public affairs, political perspective, and then relate that to a project we have in Ohio and how we're working on facing those challenges here. This week I had a presentation with the Laborers Union, a national conference in Chicago, and just yesterday I was in Lake Charles, Louisiana for the counterpart to Ohio, the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association's conference. And there's a common theme throughout the country on making sure that pipeline companies are aware and prepared for the challenges they face. And it's getting tough out there. It is tough and it's getting tougher. And we need to be ahead of the curve. We need to know that the days of constructing pipelines, getting in and getting out, and no one noticing have long passed. Keystone changed that entire dynamic for pipelines, really for the midstream industry. So we're doing a lot of things, and I'll talk about those to be prepared for that. Across the country, we're facing challenges in places that we least expected it. In fact, I asked this question, and actually somebody got it on the first answer yesterday. I'll see if you guys know. There's one state in the country currently, just one, that has a moratorium on pipeline construction as we sit here and talk today. Now, not on natural gas pipelines because of the Natural Gas Act, on products pipelines, which states regulate. So one state has, you cannot construct a pipeline. In fact, you can't even apply for permits to construct a products pipeline. Any guesses on what state that is? Anybody? Nope. How about Georgia? How about Georgia? So, no, not New York, not California, not Illinois, where Doug and I are from. Georgia. Conservative Republican legislature, veto majority, conservative Republican governor, big pro-energy state. And we faced that challenge head on with the product we had in development in the state. Lots of issues related to why that passed, but the fact is it passed in a Republican state. South Carolina, a neighboring state, passed a 3-year moratorium on any use of eminent domain for pipeline projects. So it's happening in parts of the country where we least expected it. So we need to be prepared for that and dealing with that and making sure that we not take anything for granted. Another question. What city in the country passed a zoning ordinance that's probably the most restrictive on potential pipeline construction? This is on a natural gas line, and I guess on a city. Anybody? Come on, San Francisco, New York, something, right? Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville, Tennessee. Not the last time I checked, a hotbed of environmental extremism. But it's happening. So recognizing that there are issues out there that the industry is facing that we haven't before makes us be more vigilant, more proactive than we have been, and again, not taking anything for granted. So what we're also seeing, too, is a lot of states and local governments, and that's happening here in Ohio, too, stepping up and further wanting to be involved in the process. Here in Ohio, all the way to the township level. Doug and I worked together for years and visited counties and townships all across Ohio and the Midwest, and their interest is smarter and more active and interested. If any of you in the business see that, and we have to deal with that as well. The other thing we're dealing with, too, as a challenge in the industry is FERC and the lack of a quorum. Now we're down to 2 commissioners on a 5-member body. And why is that important? Because they have to have a quorum to function to approve projects. So until they get a quorum, they can't approve projects. Staff can still do a lot, but they can't approve projects. And I just saw yesterday, President Trump has yet to nominate his nominees for the commission, and 130 groups have already opposed those nominees. Hasn't even announced who they are. 130 groups, opposition groups, said they're going to oppose whoever he nominates. So even though I think we have a president now who is pro-infrastructure, there are going to be challenges nevertheless. So a little bit about our company. We have about 70,000 miles of pipeline across the country and about 180 storage terminals. We're a transportation midstream company. Had a lot of growth over the years. We get about $13 billion now in development projects in various places across the country. In Ohio, we've got about 900 miles of pipe and several storage terminals. And we're also developing a new project. This is actually beginning the construction process currently, so this isn't a proposed project. We started tree clearing about 3 weeks ago. The Utopia Pipeline Project, over 200 miles of pipe in the state, and this is to transport a propane-ethane mix. I think my slides are advancing quickly. Do I need to talk faster? Okay, I'll move along. But our project is to transport ethane from the areas where it's available to where it's needed in a processing plant in Canada. So what I want to talk quickly about related to the project is some of the things that we have done to address what we consider to be potential challenges in the industry that also here are not, that Ohio is not immune from. And we started this, and Doug is familiar with this, about 10 years ago on our Rockies Express project. So to address issues of interest to the agriculture community, Ohio being a prime agricultural state, we started an agricultural impact mitigation agreement called an AMA. And this has become a model for a lot of pipelines across the state. The Farm Bureau worked with this, DNR. So we created this document to give additional comfort and protection to landowners in agriculture areas. It's been very much an industry standard since that time. We're also partnering with Ohio State University. There's not a lot of evidence about crop impacts to crops over a long period of time. So Ohio State was interested in having an empirical analysis done of that. So we're partnering with them for really a groundbreaking study to be based upon our new project that will be available to the industry and to the public and others over the next several years. Also, a lot of projects have economic impact studies. These are pretty much standard in the industry these days. But it's important when you go out and talk about a project that's in development, you need to talk about something that folks understand. If they heard the 2 presentations previously, very good for insiders that are in the know, not so much for people that don't really understand what this is all about. I was briefing a governor of a state. I won't mention the name of the state. It was not Ohio, but it was a governor of a state, and we talked about our asset portfolio in the state, and he said, "So do you bury these pipelines?" A sitting governor of a state, a smart person, was not aware that pipelines are buried across the country. They still think of the Alaskan pipeline snaking across the country. You get that every day. So we can't assume that everyone knows what we all know. So economic studies, information sharing is very important. Also, the way we communicate and how we communicate and making information available and easy to understand. So I know that Tallgrass and TransCanada are doing the same thing, but information materials, websites, interactive sites, a lot of communication and media outreach. We make a point of going out and talking to the media, not issuing a press statement from Houston, but going actually out to the media outlets in rural areas across Ohio. They appreciate that, and it helps better educate them about what we're doing and about our industry. Also, it's important to have the support of elected officials. A lot of folks can support you behind the scenes, but to have public support for your projects is important. That gives them a stake in the game. That means they're agreeing that this project that you are in development is important for the community that you're developing the project in. It's also important to invest in communities. I'm a big fan of county fairs. About our first champion sheep, goat, and Angus this year. How about that? I think we're the first energy company to ever do that. But communities do appreciate companies that invest in them and take part in community activities, donations and otherwise. So we've made a big point of doing that as well across Ohio. So I think the bottom line is every project that's in development needs to promote and explain itself. There's going to be no simple answer across the spectrum of pipeline expansion and how those projects are going to be necessary and essential. We've got 2.6 million miles of pipeline across the country now. It's critical to our infrastructure. But why do we need more? We need to explain why. We need to talk about the jobs. We need to talk about the economic development, the tax revenue that's coming, how this all fits together for domestic energy independence. That really resonates with people, that we are going to be domestic energy independent, not rely on countries that don't like us to get our energy, and not spend billions of dollars to those countries. That's very important. And then, perhaps most importantly, the assets we have to maintain with safety and integrity, because one problem doesn't have to be Kinder Morgan, it could be any of the companies in the industry, affects us all. So operating safe assets is critically important for the long-term viability of future expansion of our pipelines. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Alan. I think we have a few minutes for some Q&A. Are there any questions out there in the audience for Jim Halloran?
All right. Great question. Didn't talk about that in our presentation here, but a big part of our Trans-Canada strategy, we feel that the use of existing assets, which is what that long-term fixed price deal is doing, is very strategic and a very cost-effective solution to bring gas to the Dawn area. As we've gone through the past several years, we've seen those legacy shippers shift their receipts downstream to Dawn, and so we're just connecting those suppliers to the markets at a different place. Certainly there'll be some competition there, but we think our project to bring gas to Dawn is a very attractive solution to keep those producers connected to the markets, number one, but also provide a little competition there as well.
Anybody else have any other questions? I have a question. We obviously have a new administration. How do you think the new administration will have an impact on energy overall and on the pipeline construction and build-out infrastructure programs here going forward? Any of you guys welcome, Doug or
I'll take a stab at that. I actually had a slide. I didn't use it today, but I had a slide yesterday in the presentation. Had the Make America Great Again hat. It said "Make pipelines great again." So I think from an infrastructure perspective, actions speak louder than words. One of the first two executive orders that the president issued were related to Dakota Access and Keystone. So he immediately acted. I also know from personal experience when he was running for president, we had a big project in the Northeast in New Hampshire where eminent domain became an issue, as it does with most natural gas projects. And politicians were running away from our project, which was important to the Northeast, because of the eminent domain issue. He was the only candidate that stood up in a public forum in New Hampshire and said, infrastructure projects are important, and if eminent domain is part of that, then that's necessary. So I think what he's saying is what he's doing, and I can see, from the potential FERC appointments that he's going to make, the regulatory changes that he's looking at, the regulatory agencies potentially having regulatory reform in those agencies, not necessarily rollbacks, but more common sense reforms, I think is very encouraging. So I think there's a lot to be forward-looking about. The challenge is that, just as I mentioned, he's not even made his FERC appointments yet, and 130 groups are opposing those appointments. So we can look for an invigorated opposition on those rulings or those changes that he's making. So I think it's a positive. What he's done so far is very positive, and we have, as an industry, a lot to be supportive of. Harold Hamm was speaking yesterday at our conference and is very close to President Trump, and was referring to a lot of the energy conversations they've had, which are very proactive, not just from a pipeline perspective, but from drilling, exploration, refining, etc. So I think it's encouraging at this point. A lot to look forward to.
Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Well, I guess I'd say net, it seems it should be easier, but the opposition continues to grow. When Commissioner Bay left the commission, he made two comments that are already coming into play. One was FERC ought to consider broadening the scope when they look at a project, a pipeline project in the middle, go back and look at the wellhead and look at the market side. You know, if that starts to happen, that will just grind projects to really slow to develop. Because we don't tie things together that way, and that's why FERC has been pretty clear on just looking at the individual projects. So just a change like that could counteract all the Trump benefits, we'll say. But the other thing he said, and this happened or has come up in a project that we're involved with, sort of indirectly, I guess. Spire is building a pipeline from Rex down to St. Louis. It's going to be an interstate pipeline. We'll put an interconnect in for them, and $400 million a day. It's a 24-inch pipe, big project. It's going to spend, a couple $100 million bucks. One of the other statements that the ex-commissioner made was you need to look at the impact on other pipelines when these happen. As it works out, St. Louis is primarily served by MRT, an Enable pipeline. And of course, they're saying if you reduce on us, then the rates are going to have to go up for everybody else. So this is an ex-commissioner. It's already having an impact. It hasn't slowed that project down. FERC is working on an EA now, but it's in the procedure, and it's.
So that challenge really is the argument of diversification of supply and being able to have the ability to be able to buy gas from Appalachia versus MidCon, and leaving potentially some pipeline capacity stranded is what you're suggesting.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, but I guess I'll go back to what I said at the very beginning. Net, we think the Trump administration will provide some positives, but we just know that there's countervailing forces there too.
Well, this is obviously the pipeline industry, and all these pipeline projects is a great jobs initiative that doesn't require a whole lot of government stimulus money or funding to be able to get. All we need is some pipeline approvals, and we can get a lot of people back to work.
Yep.
Any other questions out there in the audience? We're a little bit past our timeline, so we're going to thank these gentlemen for their presentations and their thoughts today.